Welcome back. This is still the BDTV Breakfast Show, and this is the big story. Africa's live entertainment scene is experiencing an exciting evolution. From packed stadiums in Lagos to vibrant festivals in Nairobi and Johannesburg, the energy is undeniable. Music, art, and performance are not just cultural expressions anymore, they're serious business. Nigeria's creative industry alone contributes about $4.5 billion to the economy each year, while across East Africa, artists are filling venues and generating millions in revenue. But beyond the numbers, there is an important conversation taking shape. How do we make this growth sustainable? How do we build an ecosystem where everyone, from artists and managers to lighting crews and venue owners, actually thrive together and the impact goes beyond the stage? It's a question industry leaders need to confront as Africa's creative economy expands. And as part of that ongoing dialogue, ALEC, the Prelude, is a virtual session happening on October 22nd, which will gather voices from across the continent to discuss the theme, building a sustainable touring and live entertainment ecosystem in Africa. And to help us explore really what this means, we're joined by someone who's lived this journey. She shaped the culture. She continues to push for growth in the creative space. She's an artist. She's an entrepreneur. She's an industry advocate. I mean, I grew up literally listening to hearing our rap, when we say, put your head up, don't you cry. You can make it if you try. So I think now we're literally living in the lyrics of that song, where you said we can make it if we try. Shara Giri Omoekum, thank you for what you're doing for the industry. Really, it's great to have you here today, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that
here.
fantastic intro.
Yeah,
thank you so
thank you
much
for being here. I mean, you've had quite a journey. You are an OG, the OG before I do. Respect you on that. You've witnessed Africa's entertainment industry evolve over the years. From being in front of the scene and also behind the scene. What's actually your perspective on how far we've come, especially in the area of live performances?
I think we've come a really long way. And then, there's this saying where they say the more things change, the more they stay the same. And so we have come a long way, but then we keep reiterating that we have an infrastructure problem. And that's not a new thing. So I feel like our music is global. Now the infrastructure needs to match up to the level of the music that we're putting out there.
Right. And when we talk about, this theme that we're focusing on, building a sustainable ecosystem, what does that actually mean for you in real terms? And how can the stakeholders actually move their passion to structure and to strategy?
I think the best way for us as stakeholders to move that into strategy is by conversation and collaboration. Because so far we've all been working in silos. Everybody does their events around the year. For instance, in Nigeria, we don't have an official event calendar. We don't have a hub for live professionals. We have associations for event planners, but nothing for the live professionals. So I'm talking about the tech guys, the audio engineers, the live production guys. These are the people that are the backbone of the actual event. And so it's time that we all start converging and speaking as a team so we can decide what our resources combined can achieve. And not just for Nigeria, across Africa. And that's why this is a Pan-African conversation, because I see everybody got excited when Davido announced that he was coming to Nigeria. This is something that his team and himself have had to engineer by themselves because the resources are not there. The infrastructure is not there for them to say, oh, I'm going on the road. I want to do 30 countries in Africa. That's not possible. We have this visa issues, connectivity issues, how do we move the equipment, because not everywhere has equipment that is up to standard. So how are we going to scale these industries? By discussing and figuring out. I think that, when we come together and discuss the problems and the solutions, it'll be easier for people to identify where they fit in and what problem they can solve. And that's what ALEC is for, to create that safe space, that foundation for the movement to begin properly.
Right. And we know that obviously behind every great show is a whole team. I mean, look, the show we're having today, there's a team behind it,
Hi, team.
But for live shows, we talk about promoters, sound engineers, logistics planners, media professionals, and all of that. What do you think still limits the full development of that support system in Africa's touring circuit?
I think what limits it is really intention, financial capital, consistent financial capital, because it's not about when a promoter wants to do an event and then they raise sponsorship to do a festival or a concert. What happens all year round? So when I say investment or capital, for instance, a lot of our audio engineers or our visual engineers or our stage managers or technical directors probably did get their training from Nigeria. So that's where the education comes in. That's where the government comes in. We need to create education where people can go and train, not just learn it because they have a flair for it and be self-taught. A lot of people in entertainment are self-taught. We got here by, we're just interested in it. And then you now need to hone those skills by learning an actual skill. So I think that it's an opportunity for capacity training where people can get certificates and say, look, I trained for technical direction, and they can do all those things because it's what they've learned, and then they keep upskilling. So for instance, sometimes we have an event in Nigeria and we maybe book an international artist and they ask for equipment in their technical rider that doesn't even exist on our radar, and some of our technical guys might know about it because they get to travel the world and perform with other productions. But how do we get that here? So if we're actually looking at this as an industry that adds value, because it does, and it also adds to our GDP at the end of the day, I feel that we will put things in place that help upskill, help educate, and continue to grow over the years. And that way we'll be at par with our international peers.
Right. And we also know that one of the challenges that we have is infrastructure. People talk about every other, I mean, Dirty December is coming now. Then maybe, I don't want to mention names, will come and say that, oh, he couldn't perform because of, the sound was not up to the quality that he's used to, and he doesn't want to give anything less than he would, and which is understandable. So we'll talk about venues itself, sound safety, even travel logistics. From your experience, what are some of those practical steps that could actually make touring across this continent easier and more rewarding for both the artists and the organizers, and even for we, the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that easy access across Africa is very important. I mean, yes, we have the ECOWAS passport, but then there's still Central Africa, there's Northern Africa. Sometimes I'm trying to go somewhere and it takes me months to even get a visa, or the cost of the visa, or I'm trying to travel to Africa and I have to go to Europe first to get there, because they'll tell you that there's not enough, there's not enough clients going through that route, and so they don't actually have a route for it in their system, because airlines to our businesses, right? But when we show them that there's business here and have those conversations, I think we will begin to improve things like that. It shouldn't cost me more to travel within Africa than it does for me to go to Europe. But then everybody has their reasons why, but nobody's focusing on how do we ease this for everybody. People complain about visas. I like what, there's a lot going on and a lot of conversations are happening, like the recent Caribbean visa-free arrangement between Nigeria and the Caribbean, and Ghana and South Africa now have a visa-free agreement. So Ghanaian citizens can travel to South Africa with ease. So I feel like we're on the precipice of a huge change. And when we see more of that, it's going to make it easier to travel. Because then when I want to route a tour, I'm not thinking about, I need to carry 200 people across 10 countries, and then they're going to be waiting for visa for months. Some people won't get it. If this is our best guy and he gets stuck, who's going to do the work? You know what I mean? So that's definitely something that we can look at. And I already spoke about the routing. I spoke about the education. Like, the thing is, it's like a five frontier approach, because on every level, we're talking policy, we're talking government, we're talking hospitality industry, we're talking culture and tourism. This affects everybody, to be honest. So I think, just speaking more about it puts it on people's radar, and conversations always help build impact.
I like that you've mentioned some of the solutions to some of the problems that we have, but we also have to see that we are seeing quite some positives. We're seeing more cross-border collaborations, and we're seeing that it's reshaping the industry. In fact, that's even why you are also trying to further deepen what
Yeah.
it is that we currently have. And we're seeing artists actually touring in regions that normally they
Yes.
wouldn't reach. So what do you
Yeah.
think is driving this new spirit of, connectedness across Africa, and what are some of the ways we can deepen it?
I think what is driving this is because we're beginning to identify our identity as Nigerians and Africans, and remember that before they knew us globally, we were Nigerian. It was the radio stations here, it was the television stations here, it was the promoters here that put the Nigerian creative industry on the map, because they use their personal resources, they use their personal vision to raise funds and say, oh, I want to do a festival, I want to do an award show that celebrates African talent. And then the world took notice. So I think we've gotten to a point where ownership is very important now. And when you think about it, Africa is home. So I think that the reason everybody's thinking about that is because they've seen what's happening around the world. They go and tour. They do like 20 cities in America, and they're like, why can't I do this back home? I have fans in Rwanda. I have fans in Zimbabwe. Why can't I do this with the same ease? And people are using their personal resources, speaking to corporate sponsors by themselves and putting their events together. So I think that all we're asking is that the government, people with resources, match us and support us to get to the vision that we're trying to get to. We're already showing what is possible. We just need it to be amplified.
Right. And speaking of amplification, one thing that we often don't talk about, but good thing these days we're talking about it, is inclusion. There's conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of that. But let's talk about women and young people. And it's
Yes,
good that you're
my
a
favorite.
woman. It's good. It's actually great that you're a woman also trying to break into this space. You've been vocal about this, and in fact, that's why you're here now. What are some of the structures or mentorship systems that you think that can change this narrative and create lasting access within the industry?
Well, I think that again, I'm very big on just amplifying what it is, like speaking about it, drawing attention to it so that it's even in people's subconsciouses. And I think that, for me, diversity and inclusion in an African context is the token woman that you add to your team. They'll say, oh, you're doing a lineup, there's one female. You're doing, your executive team, there's one female. Like, we need to start adding people into the room based on merit, based on capacity, and not based on gender, and not looking at a gender as some sort of weakness or maybe they cannot lead or this. And I think that women themselves need to speak up more and need to take ownership of their own spaces so that people can see that you have the capacity to step into leadership roles. And one of the things that we're doing as we're building ALEC is also the Women in Life program, which is like a capacity building, because a lot of the time people look at the entertainment industry and aside from being an artist or maybe an artist manager, they're not really sure where they fit in. And I think, having worked behind the scenes, which a lot of people didn't know before, in production for so many years, even simultaneously as a performing artist, I was still creative director and all of those things for award shows and festivals. I realized that there's so many roles left. I mean, front of house, there's a brilliant lady who does stage direction or show calling. People don't even know that, for her to have been interested enough to train to be there is something, laudable. So I feel like when we start doing this capacity training for women, showing them the different sort of facets of the industry where they can apply, maybe you love visuals, you might be a visual director, you might not have to be a photographer, there are different ways you can fit in. So the capacity training is to show what's possible, what roles exist in the live entertainment ecosystem so that you can figure out what your niche is and then upskill in those spaces. So that's one way where we can, have more inclusion for women. And really, it's just a charge to everyone. Like I said, include people based on capacity, give people opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities I was given in my life, even as a teenager, because I'll just walk up to someone and say, oh, I want to write for your magazine. That's how I started writing for Hip Hop World magazine, for instance, which grew into me being a creative director for the award show. So I give people chances, because you never know that young person with a big dream who just, is driven, can change an entire industry. So give people chances.
Fantastic. I'm actually really inspired. I mean, it's hard to continue this conversation and decide where I'm going, but we have to go. There's the financial side itself is one area that people we'll often talk about, talk about the fact that live shows are expensive to produce. Do you think that we have investors and policymakers who truly understand the creative economy's potential, or do you think there's still a gap in perception and support?
So yes and no. I do think that there are people that understand, because like I said, a lot of conversations have been happening. People are paying attention. A lot of corporate people have partnered with the creative industry, so they do know. But I think that there's still a gap to be filled, and there's more information that there's a lot more meeting of minds that needs to happen. And we're on the course of doing that.
And as we look toward events like ALEC, which is happening in 2026, which aims to set an industry blueprint, what are the kind of conversations that you hope to see driving real change, not just real talk, not just talk, because oftentimes you come for these conferences and people say we're going to talk again.
Yes.
But I know talk is where it starts from. But what are some of
action.
those conversations that you hope to continue to see, which will drive this real change?
So I think it's about policy making, like what we've said about this access across countries. I think that's something that ministries of arts and culture can really champion with their peers in different countries. So we say it, like I said, we've seen what Nigeria has done. There's more to be done there. So like, I like what you said about talking. Yes, we can talk, but it's really about action. And that is why this is niche specific, because it's about how do we move from plan A to plan B. So the point is not to come and do aspire to inspire. It's to say, let's put action points to what we're doing, building timelines for things we hope to achieve by 2027, by 2028. For instance, we're planning to do like an African tour next year, but formed by the people at ALEC, using their resources to do a test run and say, okay, let's even start. Let's see what the gaps are. Let's see what we'll fix, as opposed to people doing it individually. And I personally believe collaboration is king, and this industry can't be built by any one person. We all need to hold our hands and do it together. So that's the appeal. Really love for everybody to join the prelude as we start the conversation next week. And watch this space.
Right. And if you're looking at the Africa's live entertainment scene 5 years from now, you wanted to paint a picture of what it will be like, what's the vision for you?
I'm really just a fan of live entertainment. I would love to see people like Tyler, whatever new artists are there at that time, saying they've done 50 countries in Africa, sold out shows. And that provides jobs for everybody. We're talking about the vendors that will be providing food, water during the events. We're talking about the hospitality, travel, hotels, accommodation. We see how events raise interest in countries and help with help people make money, basically, providing jobs for other people as well. So I just like to see that replicated on a large scale. It sounds like a huge dream, but there are countries where this already exists. So I would just like to see it implemented, working, and then we keep working to sustain it.
Right. Thank you very much for joining the big story this morning on the BDTV Breakfast Show. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We've been speaking with Sasha P, the CEO of Purple Fire Entertainment, creative all-round entrepreneur, artist, and just a great woman in general. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, this has been the big story right here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. Up next is social listening. Do stay with us.